What we're really laser focused on is onboarding the next generation of crypto users.
You had a 8-man team. What did you learn from that experience?
You can have as large of a head count as possible, but if the leader isn't effectively managing that team and the vision, it's going to be completely wasted resources.
Oskari Tempakka, the CMO at Sofon.
A powerful platform built on Validium, integrated into the ZK stack and aligned with the Elastic Chain vision.
Whether you're a user or developer, Sofon eliminates barriers, offering scalability, interoperability, and a superior on-chain experience.
How do you see the landscape of content creation in Web3?
We're going all in video content, and I think it needs to be that. As I mentioned, we're focused on onboarding the next generation of crypto users. So we need to tap into the habits and ways of consumption that they're used to. Predominantly video focused.
You mentioned a lot of the lifestyle content being a big focus, everything like that. How do you push that content outside of CT and begin pushing it more on the Web2 side?
We're building cultural relevance, which will come with a value proposition that initially creatives will tag onto, and they'll start exploring it, and we'll empower them to create content on behalf of us and bring even more interest into Sofon, and then that flywheel will start going and eventually funnel into our product.
What is there to look forward to in Sofon in the next 6 to 12 months?
We are really the first ecosystem that's going head on into the...
Welcome back to the Lock-In or Log-Off podcast, where I speak to builders, creators, and investors to understand how they spotted the opportunity and how they navigated their way to success. Today, I'm joined by Oskari from Sofon. How's it going, man?
It's going amazing. I'm ready to lock in.
That's what we love to do. You know, that's what it's all about, is speaking to people who are very, very much locked in. A lot of people's journeys into the Web3 world is very different. And I think it helps people understand how they got there, but also understand the people a little bit more from the teams that are building amazing things within the space like you guys are at Sofon. What was life like for you before you came into this crazy Web3 world?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things I'm going to walk through on my past make sense for why I'm in crypto. And this has been one of those spaces where you find a lot of similarities in a bunch of people who've ended up here. I think this is a very risk-on space, and people tend to have backgrounds that they've either, there's a lot of poker professionals in this place. Everyone's been in gambling, or there's a lot of extreme sports enthusiasts, which is like the category that I belong to. I feel I've been taking high risks, haven't been afraid of them since an early age. And I think that pretty naturally brought me into this space with a couple of stepping stones in between. But more broadly, I think I've pretty much been like a nomad since birth. So I was born into, I'm from Finland originally. Both parents are Finnish, but we're an expat family. So when I was 4 years old, we took off, started traveling all over the world, lived in Canada for a while, lived in Italy for a while, back in Finland for a while. And then after that, just for my own career, been moving around between, Luxembourg, Dublin, and then I started nomading. Now I'm in Dubai, and just been all over the place between that. So I've never been put for too long of a time. And in addition to kind of that, it's an extreme sports background that defines, and we can dive into it deeper, I think, through this session. A lot of what I've done is, I feel I've tried to follow the path of society's expectations in a way of just typical education, doing the uni path. I studied business and finance in school and getting that first job and doing things nicely, getting good grades in school. But that's always been a little bit hard for me because I've wanted to go against the grain, and I've lived I'm a bit of a lone wolf. I never felt like I fully resonated with for lack of a better word, let's say this NPC style of doing things.
Great.
So
way to put it.
there's always been a massive friction towards the norm and what society expects you to do. So I think before crypto, a big part of me was just fighting this duality of society's pressures, parental pressures, friend group pressures, just fear of failure versus doing what I actually want to do. And I think the what I actually want to do alongside the classic route of education and work was always snowboarding. Yeah. Picking up a camera in my hand back then. I started competing in freestyle snowboarding, creating content, putting the cringe stuff on the internet. I sucked at snowboarding when I started. Just putting it out there and having people see it. Then slowly pivoted to, when I got a bit further on and I actually knew how to be in front of a camera, snowboarding wasn't it anymore. I noticed I'm not going to go pro. Started creating YouTube videos, created a YouTube channel when I was in uni studying finance, which is the exact thing you shouldn't do. Doing more in a very small scale, but Mr. Beast style content of these big unexpected entertainment pushes online where your friends and colleagues are what are you doing? You're ruining your own brand. But that was what I wanted to do always. And I think that slowly started to morph these two worlds together. and move further away from like this path of expectation and stuff, and leaned more and more into content, the creator economy, like building things myself and with people who I felt like wanted to go against the grain and try new stuff. And pretty naturally I was in the startup world for a while, which is also very risk on. I think that's a natural stepping stone toward crypto. And then after that, ended up in this space where I've just felt like I'm at home.
Yeah.
So that's the high level overview.
No, it's fascinating. I think there's a lot I can relate to within that story. I think there's always a lot of the people I speak to in Web3, both on the pod, but also personally, is they also have a similar thing of like they felt displaced in the societal norm. And I think it's the same thing where you probably in a lot of startup tech industries, it's like people who just naturally don't want to go down that safe route and want high risk. And like obviously with the high risk comes like high tempo and a lot of innovation and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest, like the hardest parts through when I've been looking to like similar kind of approach of like kind of felt that I didn't want to go down the normal routes. I didn't go to uni. I didn't go everything like that. But it's like becoming confident to go against the grain.
Yeah.
When was a pivotal moment for you that you like felt that you could, okay, I can do this with confidence, irrespective of your family or your friends kind of saying, oh, like you shouldn't be doing this for your brand. It doesn't align with what you're doing in the schooling system and everything like that.
That's a great question, because I think we get to the point where I mentioned this morphing of the expectations, what I actually wanted to do. And I think that truly started to happen once I leaned heavily into the YouTuber path. And this was when I was like 20 years old or something. So first year of uni, where I had started doing YouTube as a little bit of a thing where I didn't shout about it to anyone, with a friend of mine who we were roommates with at uni, because we'd seen in that era, if anyone's a big lifestyle content consumer, they'll know like Sam Colder, Jay Alvarez, and these people who kind of were like, okay, they've like created a profession around doing just cool shit and documenting it and showing it to others. Like, why couldn't we do it as well? And just pick like a niche approach of, okay, we're in Finland. Let's do it in Finnish language. No one's doing travel content. No one's doing like entertainment focused content. Let's just start doing that for the fun of it and see how far we can get. For probably like 6 months, we're putting out videos to an audience of 200 people, right? Like you'll get maximum 200 views on a piece of content. And the gut reaction I had every time we post a video was just horrible.
Yeah.
Like the anxiety that creeps up to you, like I shouldn't be doing this. I know everyone's going to judge me. And then you just start walking around your uni campus and you feel no one's looking at you, but you feel like they're like staring at you. And then sometimes you'll get a random comment of someone kind of belittling you or making fun of, oh, you're trying that on YouTube thing. So I definitely was not confident doing it. I was like very far from confident on going against the grain in a lot of ways. And I've been like a very anxious person a long time. The confidence came through the initial success that then started happening at one point, where I was just consistent for long enough in creating content and pushing for that vision of, I think this could work, where when it started to gain traction, you notice that I was right in betting on this. Like this crazy anxiety I've been having, it's like, it's okay, it's been worth it. I was right. And then you slowly start having a lot of these people who are slightly even belittling you, because that's what kind of society expects them to do in a way, is kind of make fun of the people going against the grain. So to turn around is like, yo, how did you do that? And like, long story short, what happened on that path is we actually ended up building the biggest YouTube channel in Finland, having the most views. We won the Vlog Channel of the Year award at like this massive ceremony where there's thousands of kids shouting at you on stage, getting a reward. And that's a confidence booster, right? And it's, my brother used this reference of a cookie jar all the time, where you start collecting these cookies by putting in the work, and you make something happen where you've had a vision, and then you have a cookie that you can look back on, and easily this jar starts filling up. And that is like the belief in yourself, and that is also the credibility that you build for yourself. And then it just becomes easier and easier to trust your intuition and your vision when that cookie jar starts filling up with consistency paying off. So that confidence only came through several year effort of pushing through really uncomfortable feelings and trying to avoiding talking about this with people who would expect you to do something different. But that's also when I dropped out of uni then. Was at that point where I felt I have enough cookies in that jar that I could say that I could rationalize my decision to other people, which again is also, I kind of needed to have an explanation for others of why I was going to it. So it's not 100% confidence still, but it's up
Yeah,
there.
no, I think that's a great analogy, and I think it's so true. It's especially when starting off with stuff, it's just huge discomfort for the longest time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's discomfort that you create in your own head, but like you can't really avoid it. It's human. And the way society's built right now is like, especially from the content perspective, is the same. Like I've done a lot of content in Web3 on just like written content on the timeline. But then when I was starting the podcast, I was like, oh, do I post stuff on Instagram where like people, friends knew I'd done stuff in Web3, didn't know I did content, everything like that. And then the discomfort of like just my own mental barrier of then going into that world is a lot. But the cookie jar is a great analogy of like the more and more things you do that are uncomfortable and you can prove that you're right and then you get success at the end of it, the bigger risks you're willing to take, the more confident you become in those risks, and also the more confident you become in the ability, like if those go wrong, that you can navigate it.
Yep.
And that's like, even like when I was looking to move to Dubai, I was like, I just looked at it from a factual perspective and like, okay, what is the worst case that can happen? Okay, I believe I can handle that. Okay, then let's make the decision. And I think there's so much to take from that. From like, I think especially the part where you say like the people that were kind of mocking you, and then when you made it, they ask you. It's so funny how you ask most people what would their dream job be, and I'll be like, oh, I'd love to be like a YouTuber or a podcaster or something like this. But then they obviously imitate or mock people who start that. I think, yeah, it's just crazy that so many people want that as their future and their life, but that initial period of discomfort is often too uncomfortable for most people. Yeah. When you were going through that period, if you were to speak to yourself during that period when nobody else like kind of saw the vision, and like say someone's watching this and they would love to go down that route and maybe feel that uncomfort, what's one tip you'd give them to help try and navigate that period?
I'd say like, and this comes from like a privileged perspective. Like I've been in a privileged position my whole life, but it's been chanting to myself that my worst case scenario is the norm, is like the expectation. It's like, okay, my fallback is then I would just, go back to uni or something else. Like I know a lot of people say you shouldn't have a plan B, go all in, but I had one. I was in like a good position, whereas it's like I could pretty freely take a lot of risks because I, in a delusional way, always believe in myself to make things happen. I built up the cookie jar to also be able to back it up in a way that just one day at a time, do more. Every single day, just put something out there and you'll slowly start seeing the fruits of that labor.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think it's the big thing of just reframing in your mind, but be positive talk. Like that, you're always gonna have the battle of your own self of like wanting to be negative, of thinking other people are saying certain stuff like that. Like do your best to fight that battle and be delusionally optimistic, like you say.
Yeah.
But going on to the like post, you obviously done the content side of things, everything like that. What was life post YouTuber? You mentioned into the startup world. What did the startup world look like for you?
Yeah. So I'll add a little bit more context there because I was mentioning I was going through like two different paths at the same time, which one was this more path of expectations and one was my own road. Before I started like doing this YouTube path and content creation, like I was in business school studying finance, majoring in that. I had my first job at a private bank. And at this stage, I actually moved to Luxembourg for a while as well. I got to see what was the goal of a lot of people studying finance. You go to one of these European finance centrals, which I want to go to London or Luxembourg or Frankfurt and work in a private bank or private equity or whatever it is you want to do, investment banking. And that's a lifestyle. That's like what people then want to post about. And that's when you share on your LinkedIn and everyone gives you that social credibility. It's like, oh yeah, acknowledgement of let's go. Congrats, you got this new job. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I was wearing a suit in Luxembourg and just like listening to orders from some, and the bank I was working with a consulting firm that they'd brought on a like project basis. And I remember clearly in my mind this one time where I just decided I'm never going down this path, which is actually probably another pivotal moment where there's a VP at this consulting firm said to me when I gave feedback directly about something that one of their leadership was doing wrong in the process that I felt could have hurt the company I was representing. He came to me one-on-one and said, be very careful what you say. You can hurt yourself. And I remember I smiled at him in the face. I knew, like, subconsciously, I knew it's like, this is it
Yeah.
for me. It's like, I hate authority. I
Yeah.
absolutely hate authority and all that stuff. Like, I've had a lot of issues with it, be they teachers or others. I'm like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And that's when my first instinct was, okay, let's try big tech. This is like the old institutional financial world, which is different. You go suit up and go to work. But big tech, they wear hoodies. It's cool. You can go over there. And I applied to all the big tech companies. Again, in a privileged position, I got accepted to Google. So I went to Google for a while, did the business internship, and got to work with data analytics, got to work very closely with Team YouTube, like the regional team, which also adds context to why I ended up going to YouTube, because I spotted an underserved niche, which was, again, there wasn't enough Finnish speaking content, and I was doing travel content, etc. But I saw the Google world, and it was very slow in corporate as well. It's not what you see on the intern movie about Google. It's not as dynamic. It's like very slow. You don't have any ownership. You just do what someone tells you to do. You're expected. You can't really own a process. Finland's a small place, so a Google internship was also like a very nice stamp on the classic CV, which put me in a position where people were paying attention. And I was approached with a pretty unique opportunity to take lead of a very early stage venture fund. Now, there's this venture fund in Finland called Wave Ventures that is run. It's like a Gen Z focused venture fund, and it is run by, the whole premise of it is they want it to be run by a Gen Z team, a young team, instead of the classic plus 50-year-old suite of partners. Boomers running it, because we want to focus on like the next generation of consumer apps and back young, bold founders and give them like the educational resources to actually understand how venture works and get into the space. It was a small $2 million fund, investing like angel size tickets of about 50K across the Nordics, but it was an 8-person team doing that. It's like partial volunteer work on the investment team, and then they have like a full-time CEO. And I was asked to CEO that fund. And when I started thinking of the opportunities, okay, continue at Google, do this like corporate path, I can kind of see my future, and I really don't like it. It would be like very slow and boring and monotone, just repetitive. And then I could go in a completely unknown path. I wasn't familiar with venture. I could hop into a role where I'm expected to lead a team of 8 people across 3 different countries and invest the capital of some of the most well-known entrepreneurs and like successful people in Finland. So get into that network. No brainer for me. And also because of the risk on mentality, venture is all about risk. Yeah. And when I started studying it more, like, this resonates with me. I want to do this. So I decided to pursue that path, got into venture. And for 2 years there, I was building out and leading this team of 8, investing into early stage mainly consumer companies, and getting to join their boards, join their advisory teams, work with a lot of these more experienced, successful investors, because they usually join the rounds as angel investors as well. And that just opened my eyes to the possibilities in business and career paths as well. Because in school, people don't talk about startups or entrepreneurship in general, but I got to see that like very early on in my career, like exactly how that happens, both by managing capital and having to understand it, because I have a fiduciary duty to the LPs of the fund, but also just getting to work with such smart people who just brought me context of, hey, actually, what I noticed is most of the people who had become successful or like back these funds and were investing in these companies had gone against the grain. They had done something significantly different to what others expected of them at some point in their lives. And this is how they ended up in this position, doing something that, from my point of view, was very cool compared to banking, big tech, and other experiences that I've had in the past. So a bit of a long one, but that's like the additional context to it, and kind of what my initial takeaways from the startup world were.
That's amazing. I think everyone who's like the pro risk on it, that's kind of why I like the Web3 industry. I came in here obviously initially from the financial incentive. There's no shying away from that. It's like I came in, there's a lot of money to be made in the NFT cycle, everything like that. But then I got I always was fascinated by the startup world from a outsider perspective, but never really got to see it properly. But then during the bear market, it was like, I could speak to loads of founders trying to build really cool stuff. And when you start to see that, the appetite to be involved in potentially making something that is innovative and groundbreaking and everything like that, that's what attracted me to that's when I pulled the trigger to go full-time Web3. And I was like, this is the industry where I can embrace that startup culture. And I think, you have to be very risk on. But I think at a young age, it's good to get exposed to that because that's when you can be risk on, right? It's like you don't have too many responsibilities. You can work, because like a lot of startups fail. You're going to work for a lot of startups that don't go the way you think they will. But from that, obviously, you had like, you go in at CEO high level, you had a 8-man team. What was the lessons of like leadership? Because I know you're doing a lot now with the Sofon team, and we'll get into that. But what did you learn from that experience specifically?
Leadership is really freaking hard. You think it wouldn't be, and often I think a general conversation toward leaders is that they do nothing. If someone's just like leading a team, they do nothing. But it really brings forth your own vulnerabilities and shortcomings. Like that's the first thing that I noticed is you can have as large of a head count as possible, but if the leader isn't effectively managing that team and the vision, it's going to be completely wasted resources. And I pretty much immediately noticed myself just being like a bottleneck for just day-to-day operations and direction because I didn't exactly know what it means to be a good leader or what that entails. And it's much more being a builder of processes, being a psychological support partner to people on the team, being just a higher level problem solver than an operational cannon who just does stuff. And I've been very operational oriented where I just like do stuff and then without like further thinking would expect others to kind of match that energy and just do things. Whereas with a leader, you kind of need to give up a part of that where, yes, I believe it's incredibly important to lead by example and be operational and show things. But in the end, your goal is you're essentially putting together the pieces of the puzzle and making sure that everything aligns perfectly and there's no empty gaps between people. There's no blind spots in the company and everyone's focusing on the right things. They understand what they're supposed to do. Everyone's aligned on the vision and no one has like pent up friction between others on the team. And you just need to be very proactively monitoring that and empowering your team to do their best work. It's a really, really active monitoring role in a way. And you just need to be very easy to access and available because as soon as you zone out or start focusing too much on your own thing, your team they're going to go in a direction which often is different than what you want as the CEO of a company. So I learned a lot about myself. That was like the first learning of that. I have a long way to go to become a good leader. And then I just needed to proactively spend a lot of time in studying what that means. And it became pretty clear to me within that 2-year time frame.
And what did you do to study? Was that books? Was that roles?
Books, mentors. I spent a lot of time speaking with a lot of the LPs of that fund actually, because they had some of them built like unicorns actually from scratch. So actually from raising an angel round to actually exiting for billions of dollars. And they have a wealth of experience in messing things up. Like and in general, just like walking through what they messed up was typically the most valuable for me and understanding of, okay, I recognize that I'm doing things in a much smaller scale. This is my own company, but I'm still like leading a team. And I recognize those issues that you've had when you brought on 200 people under your team and just for them to walk through what they did to fix it, what kind of hires they brought in to fix some blind spots, and how they went about like self-development as well was super beneficial for me. So really just the right network.
And what were like three key learnings that you can share with someone that wants to be a good leader right now? That is actionable or maybe just easy to understand to be the first step to becoming a good leader.
Care about your team. Like number one is care about them. Make sure that they are put in a position where they genuinely feel that they can do their best work. And don't expect them to proactively voice that to you all the time, but actually consciously dig for it. I think that's really important because you as a leader, you need to empower your team to do their best work. You need to proactively be doing that. Second is drop your ego completely. You're a leader of the company. You can just assume you're always wrong. I think in a way, it's like you're the one who in the end makes a decision, but you can never make that based off emotion. Like it can never be emotional. You're expected to take input from so many different places, so many different people. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. You need to be completely logical about it. Take the different points of view, take your own point of view and intuition and like mainly trust that, but let others' opinions affect it a little bit with zero emotion. Like you can't have emotion on those logical decisions. A lot of emotion and empathy for like empowering your team and leading them, but zero emotion on like decision making. I'd say those are the two most important ones.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I think being emotionless can be very tough, especially in the Web3 industry when you have obviously your team, then you have a community of thousands of people screaming at you, wanting something specific. Being able to have those emotional decision-making moments, I think is shown to like be impactful when you look at a lot of the founders that have been successful. You can kind of see that behavior, and also understanding, interesting thing Lucanet said is understanding what they want more than they realize they want, especially in the Web3 context specifically. But let's go into the Web3 side of things. First, congrats on everything on the recent TGE and everything you guys have achieved so far. I think Sofon has done amazing work over the recent past. But obviously, you guys are going for a pretty big challenge as such, and that's consumer crypto. What does consumer crypto mean to you?
Yeah. Consumer crypto is a vague term. I think it's a bit problematic on its own. What we're really laser focused on is onboarding the next generation of crypto users. And when I say next generation of crypto users, that means people who will not come on chain to use crypto as a product, which I think it has been to date, mainly that crypto is the actual product. But they will benefit from crypto rails through familiar user experiences. That's how I think of consumer crypto, like from the point of view of a Sofon, is that it is applications powered by crypto that are on par with existing Web 2 applications that just happen to be better because of what's possible thanks to this technology. And that's what we're really trying to make happen.
And I think, I think like you say, consumer crypto is thrown around a lot. I think a lot of people thought meme coins were the onboarding mechanism for consumer crypto. I think that's a fascinating perception on the way it's really the guardrails for traditional experiences, but just making them more dynamic in many ways. We see it with Polymarket. We see it a lot in the sporting world as well. Being able to familiar experiences, but in a unique way with crypto side of things. But how does Sofon look to achieve that? I think there's obviously multifaceted in the way, like obviously you're on the marketing team and you guys are heavily focused on how you relate to the Web2 audience through your brand. Let's dive into that first. How do you see what is the strategy from the actual Sofon brand itself in the positioning, and how you kind of position that to be attractive to the Web2 audience?
Yeah. I love that question because I think our approach is so different than what you've seen in crypto in general. And that is that my fundamental belief is that every single company needs to be a media company first in this day and age. I mean, that has been the case for a long time already. If you look at the most successful brands that have become culturally relevant, they've been media companies first. I think no one in crypto has done that right. There are specific IPs with, I think like Pudgy's doing a great job with building like the next generation Disney. That's content first, and that's why it's working so well. But from like an infrastructure point of view, like Sofon is a platform powered by blockchain. No one's done the content first route of building cultural relevance, and people don't recognize the importance of it yet. Sofon's going all in on that. You want to build a lifestyle brand. You want to build something that people want to associate themselves with. They want to feel belonging if they're part of that community because they feel it's cool. Like essentially that's what it comes down to. They feel the brand is cool. They feel associating themselves with it and having it become a part of their identity or publicly connecting themselves with it makes them a bit cooler in a way. That's what brands have successfully done. Coming from the extreme sports realm, Red Bull is the example I'm always going to throw around. Yeah. Every extreme sports athlete essentially wants to affiliate with Red Bull, even if they're not paying them, because it's cool. And it raises your social credibility as an extreme sports athlete if you're wearing a Red Bull helmet. Same goes for, you're from the UK, so you might know the details of the Gymshark origin story. Yeah. It's content first. And if you were a fitness athlete in any way, just wearing the Gymshark clothing or associating yourself with that made you a bit cooler
Yeah.
in a way, for lack of a better word. And that playbook has worked all through time, whatever the product is that you sell in the end. I, as like the person leading marketing, am very intentional about how we position Sofon brand as the place that, you know, anyone who necessarily doesn't need to have to care about the blockchain technology or anything can understand and support the vision of the next generation of consumer apps and lifestyle experiences, by showcasing it through our own content of what those lifestyle experiences could look like. And content is the key to getting that message out there. So we're going to have we do have a very like premium, slightly mysterious style of communicating things, which opens up a lot of questions for people, or it provokes their curiosity, which then gets people to create more content around it. And you get this cycle of, if you know, when you have slight mystery to your brand of, okay, what exactly is this? Why does this look cool? I like the vibe, but I don't know exactly what it is. And then when you get someone to understand it enough, they feel like they know something that others don't. They're going to start preaching the gospel on behalf of you. And that kickstarts this sort of flywheel, which has worked throughout time. And then you just want to affiliate yourself with the brand. And then from a marketing point of view, then product is a secondary function, whereas then you need to have the product that serves your business purpose. But the media machine is like step one in building this cultural relevance, which for a consumer platform that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's fascinating I think it's only becoming more and more present in the way that like content needs to be led first. And like you said, the ones that it's a lot harder to be product only with no marketing, even if it's the most amazing products. And I think there's a lot of teams in the space that are so smart, making amazing things, but they just haven't mastered the content side of things. Obviously, you mentioned like a lot of the lifestyle content being a big focus, everything like that. What does that look like now, pushing that further? And obviously, that's a style of content I think a lot of people realize can be very relatable to the Web2 audience. How do you push that content outside of CT and begin pushing it to a new audience, more on the Web2 side?
Yeah. So one core belief behind like why we're doing a lot of lifestyle content and focusing on the sort of longer form, very creator-led, not necessarily directly Sofon-tied content, is that I very strongly believe that like creatives are the new athletes, in a way where athletes were the people every brand wanted to work with back in the day. They're the biggest names in the space. I think everybody knows the biggest consumer brands right now are being launched by creatives, usually YouTubers. Hailey Bieber just sold her cosmetics brand again. What are the valuations of all the Kardashians cosmetics brands? You have Prime, KSI and Logan Paul. You have Happy Dad from Nelk. You have all these. Mr. Beast is launching, like, he's no longer doing like a lot of brand deals, but launching his own products because as a creative, he has much better pull and is in a much better position to build a consumer brand than someone who needs to purchase that media. So you want to own the distribution. Now, that's the reason we're doing it this way. This is like, for the past months, we've been setting the basis to be able to do it in a scalable manner, so that you eliminate the key man risk of like tying. And I know Leon spoke about this publicly on Twitter a bit, because Miggy's been popping off. He's doing an incredible job, and that creates some key man risk if you have one creator who's doing an incredible job. But it's possible to do it in a scalable way. Sofon will have tens of creators who do an incredible job of creating content that is tied to the Sofon vibe and pushes our message forward. And these people will be creating content in all channels. Like, someone who consumes Sofon content does not need to know it's directly crypto related. It does not matter. I want to provoke their curiosity to explore what this is about. And there will be a clear funnel to bring that attention into signing up for Sofon, and then Sofon will create value for them, and then they'll have an incentive to refer other people to come onto Sofon, and that'll just kickstart the flywheel. But it all starts with lifestyle content. We've been doing like some small experiments already, and we're getting, DMs from people on Instagram, on TikTok, via some like personal channels, like very small experimentation where we haven't even Sofonified these channels. And they're also like, yo, you need to get me up to speed on what Sofon is, just because they see something cool is like emerging out of this. So it's going to be just a very natural progression of, right now we're using the CT audience because it's easy to test stuff and bootstrap things. And I think the style of content we're doing is new for CT.
Yeah.
You're already seeing at Kickstart, a lot of teams are looking for content creators now. Like I'm getting DM'd all the time. Like, where do I hire my Miggy?
Yeah.
Like, how do I find my own Miggy? And people are forwarding me messages of this. It's like easier said than done. It's like it starts with systems and processes, but I'm glad you're looking into it. You're going to see a plethora of people start trying to hire content creators and think it just happens. But there's much deeper like content strategy behind it and systems in place to help someone be like a really good creator to make that happen. But we're putting those systems in place so that when we have the right creators on board who believe in our vision, I just give them everything they need to be the best possible creators. And I want the biggest creators on CT initially to be part of Sofon's team, and that they themselves want to be part of Sofon's team because it is the best platform for their brands. And that will then again feed into the flywheel of creators outside of CT when we start expanding there, seeing that, okay, I want to associate myself with this. I can provide them with the resources to empower them to start creating on behalf of us, because our expansion strategy outside of this bubble will not be dependent on our core team's content, because that doesn't scale.
Yeah.
Like my job is to do things that effectively don't scale, but just make them scale and find ways to make them scale. I think that's the job of anyone working in a startup, really, is just doing hard things and scaling them. But it's scaling through how do you create brand evangelists who do that scaling for you? Because then you can have thousands of people doing the content, but you need a core cohort of people who lead by example and like set the tone for what the brand looks like. And that's what like our in-house marketing team is doing. And once we start expanding outside, you'll pretty soon see Sofon will be present in events outside of crypto events. You know, think of like massive sporting events, think of fashion week events and things like that. We're building cultural relevance, which will come with a value proposition that initially creatives will tag onto, and they'll start exploring it, and we'll empower them to create content on behalf of us and bring even more interest into Sofon. And then that flywheel will start going and eventually funnel into our product.
No, that's fascinating and exciting. Like, as a creator myself, I think a lot of people will hear that and be like, oh, I want to be a part of that vision. Like that is like very much like looking at the Web 2 world when you see like a lot of the Phase House and everything kickstart that. Like it was like, yeah, that's the vision I get of like, oh, those early people are like basically in that first, like those early houses of like them content houses that we've seen do so well, and it's so exciting. I think that like obviously my perspective on CT, obviously, yeah, like Mickey's doing insane with all his lifestyle stuff. But there's not that many people that do that style of content on CT and are comfortable to do that style of content, because it's very difficult to be so comfortable in front of camera and be able to just go and do these, like have the talent in front of camera to match all these opportunities and these vibes that you're looking to do. How do you look to find that talent? Because obviously you want to scale it. Are you going to be looking to just go to like Web 2 people, get them involved? Yeah. How do you find people who can make that style of content in the premium way that you're looking for?
Yeah. Glad you asked that, because now again, I should add a bit more context to my background again. There have been so many things going on at the same time while I was like in the midst of finding my own direction. But post YouTube, when I was being a creator myself, we built the biggest channel. I think we kind of achieved what we wanted to. And one big key takeaway for me was I'm very introverted. Like I literally did not like the attention that you got. Finland's a small place. You have the biggest channel. All of a sudden people are going to stop you on the street and start taking pictures. It's the most awkward thing in the world for me. I like, broadly put, the stereotype around Finnish people is we don't like people. I don't like people. Like and I was like, I need to change things. I want to hop behind the camera. I want to be building systems and processes. So we actually kind of sunset the YouTube channel, because the person I was working with at that time had a very similar mindset of like, we don't necessarily want to be in front of camera. So we turned that into a creator agency where we focused on helping other creators grow. So essentially like a creator accelerator, because we felt that we knew how to do it. We could crack the code. And also doing like classic influencer marketing, which helping brands that we had worked with and then other ones tap into this creator economy, because in Finland it was pretty new back then. So we're running this like creator agency, and one big part of my job was scouting for up and coming talent. Like the core thing that my value proposition in that market was, I believed I was in a better position to find the best up and coming creators, give them what they need to become some of the biggest names in the market, and then help them monetize what they're doing. So I've done this for a living, essentially. And this is the same what a lot of these big media platforms successfully did. Is take Barstool Sports. That's one that I've studied like very closely, whereas they built their whole, which is like a sports betting book, which is like the core product in a way. They built the whole top of funnel marketing for that through creator acquisitions, essentially. They started bringing on board people who had the X factor of being a good creator, put them in places where they could get their own brand out there. They podcast, turn them into vloggers, YouTubers, do like daily news channels or whatever, and then use that top of funnel information to attention to funnel into the actual product, and then expanded that empire around it. For Sofon, it's going to be very much the same. So I'm looking for people who, in these initial phases, understand crypto. They have the X factor of what I have learned it takes to be a really good creator, because there are a lot of nuance around creating like high quality content, and being able to do it consistently. And do I believe that they could be a 10 times better creator if I brought them to Sofon and gave them the systems and processes and resources to do it better? And if they tick those boxes of, okay, I feel they have what it takes and we could quickly make them 10 times better, then I will try to work with them. Yes, It's a mutually beneficial relationship, because like I mentioned earlier, Sofon needs to be the platform where these people want to proactively be. Creators do incredibly well in this modern economy. If they don't see a value proposition in working with us and being part of like our own media machine, then they would have no reason to do that. They could do things on their own if they have all the resources that they need to do it. And for anyone who grows big enough on social, they will have that need. So it's my job to keep Sofon as the most lucrative platform for any creator to affiliate themselves with. But it's really that, just based on my experience scouting what a good creator looks like. Then also, of course, from the crypto point of view, do they really understand our vision and what we're doing? So they're able to unconsciously message our vision through very natural content, giving what they need to succeed. And hopefully 6 months from now, you'll see that we will have like several case examples of that in action.
Yeah.
I think the recent hires we made are incredible additions to the team. And I feel they're going to be super, super good creators when we give them what they need.
What does that X factor look like? I think a lot of people obviously want to be the creator that has that X factor. And I think some people have it within them, but they haven't found a way to channel and everything like that. Obviously, it's quite hard to be able to say exactly what that looks like. But is there any like way you could describe what you find the people who have the X factor have?
Number one is you have to have a real hunger for wanting to be a creator, because it is incredibly uncomfortable to consistently put your face out there. However much you like attention or whatever it might be, it's still incredibly uncomfortable to film content, because, if you've ever tried to film just like a speaking head video of like an educational thing, you're going to repeat the same line 20 times until you get it right.
It's tough.
and it's like, people don't understand what happens behind the scenes. Like, you need to be hungry, you need to want it. And I need to be able to see that you're willing to put in the work, because you will fail every single day and you're just going to need to redo everything 10 times before you get it right. But if you have the hunger, you're going to push through it. That's what I've seen with like all successful content creators, like who have become influencers. You need to be willing to put in the work. And I think second is like, you need to have a story or persona that's like going to be relatable for others, because you want to build a lifestyle brand or a brand that others want to kind of co-live with you through your content. So of course, if you have a background or story that has some levels of interest to it, or just general, your communication style is a way that just gets people going, then that's good. But work ethic is really just number one, and you need to want to be a creator. You can't force creators. My belief is you cannot force someone to be a creator if they don't want it. So that's step one.
I think so much of CT is forced in many ways. I think very few people do the content for the love of the content creation. I think a lot of people see the potential upside of being a content creator, and in some ways they're able to brute force that way to having a good following and stuff like that. But I think there's actually such few people on the timeline that truly love the craft. And the same way, like, you see a lot of these creators, like, they end up making a lot of money and then they stop, and it's like, then they're not doing anything. It's like, but where did that hunger of like the creativity go? And obviously, like, sometimes you'll want to stop and stuff like that, but what is your view on the current content landscape in Web3? Obviously, for you guys, by the sounds of it, video content is going to be a huge focus, especially you can't really display it in any other way from a lifestyle perspective, which we're starting to see more of on the timeline. But generally, how do you see the landscape of content creation in Web3?
Yeah. We're going all in video content, and I think it needs to be that. As I mentioned, like, we're focused on onboarding the next generation of crypto users. So we need to tap into the habits and ways of consumption that they're used to. Social media and just general consumption of content in the internet is predominantly video focused. It's short form video focused now. Yeah. Short form vertical video focused is like what it is, like the general consumer consumption of video right now. There is a very important place for longer form vertical video as well to build like deep fan engagements. But you go from the long form horizontal to those clipped up short ones for top of funnel, the classic content funnel. But it's going to be all video. And from a crypto point of view, it's super low hanging fruit because no one has been doing it. Like, I believe we are going to play part in kickstarting this flywheel of everybody starting to do it more and more. More creatives, storytellers, and creators are going to enter the space because they see the financial opportunity of being to do it. And a lot of teams who have good funding are going to start paying a lot of money to bring these creators on board. So I think there's going to be a big shift, whereas 6 months from now, it's not going to be as low hanging fruit as it was. But same in Web 2, everyone's creating video content. How do you stand out? You need to build like emotionally resonating stuff. It comes down to the storytelling. It comes down to the quality of presentation. It comes down to consistency. It comes down to the personas, like presenting it. So we're really focused on just fine tuning this media machine that will be very hard to compete with by other platforms, because effectively in crypto, anything from generalistic blockchains to application specific ones, you're a platform for applications. Yeah. And you need to become lucrative in the eyes of builders for them to select you out of all the thousands of other options. Content distribution, presence, the vibe that you build through content is going to be a competitive advantage that others don't yet get the importance of, and we're just leaning heavily into it.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to perfect as well. Like it's a very the vision of it is beautiful, but the execution of it in many cases is very hard, and that comes down to all just like the consistency of your brand through these contents. Working with content creators comes with its own struggles. Like the same way, if you look at all of those Web 2 content houses, like how did those end? There's a lot of challenges that come along that route. But I think naturally with the way, I think it's quite nice the way that the Web3 content creation is going, and it is starting to push people outside of the comfort of just the written content. Obviously, we've seen Kaito now go to Instagram and TikTok, one step to incentivize people to start doing video content. I think it'll be interesting to see a lot of the Web3 creators now have to compete on a Web2 platform, and how they do that and how they realize how competitive it is. I think something I've always noticed when I started the podcast, I was like, okay, I have to look at it from a Web 2 perspective. How would I compete and stand up against the biggest of the Web 2 people? And that's who I have to continue to have my standards against that, because if we truly believe that this industry is going to go to the masses, those people will then be tapping into this industry, and that's who you'll have to compete with. Yep. I think there's the current landscape of content creation needs a huge refresh in terms of what that looks like from being able to compete with the Web 2 people.
Oh, it does. And one thing I want to add to it, what I think nobody really talks about, is the fact that, vibe coding was a big trend. Sam Altman has said that the next $1 billion company, at some point, there's going to be $1 billion companies by like 1 or 2 person teams. Yeah. And my personal belief is like creatives are in one of the best positions to be the incubators of these massive 1 or 2 man companies, because you have the distribution. And that's what you need. That's what it comes. If you have the distribution, then like everything else, like intelligence has been commoditized. A lot of the dev work has been commoditized. Of course, like you can't vibe code like the full thing, but if we become attractive enough for creatives and can get them to start, who have distribution, and get them to start experimenting on chain by providing a clear value proposition for building here versus on legacy systems, or just bringing their work to life. Think the next Prime or the next Feastables, like something more in a digital product, or even a physical product that's connected to some on-chain functionality. Being on Sofon, those are going to be massive applications that I think like no one's talking about. We're not focused yet on the way that companies are currently being built in Web 2. Yeah. But with like this positioning as well, like one thought in the back of my mind that we're like consciously working towards is exactly that I want creatives to see Sofon as a place to come build, experiment, monetize the work,
incubate what they've basically built.
Exactly, because then we are a developer platform in the end. Yeah. We can provide support and rails for turning whatever that vision or creation is to life and turning it into a scalable application as well. We can help with that. But the creator part is that's going to be hard to find.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I think it's everyone talks about founder-led marketing in Web3, but I think another, like you tied back to, is like it's just more just personal brands are now the biggest leverage piece in everything now. Like you said, all the big brands want to work with creators, or a lot of the big brands actually have a founder that's incredibly present. Like having distribution through individuals versus brands now is so much more important, because like people just resonate more with people. Like most people are consuming YouTube when they're eating. Like there's just such stronger relationships between people v people versus brands as such. And I think that's a beautiful way to put it, and a really interesting angle on how to achieve that. But as we come towards the end of the show, what is there? I like to ask a few questions, and one of those being, what is there to look forward to in Sofon in the next 6 to 12 months?
In addition to what we spoke about here, from a more techno point of view and like product point of view of what we're going to be funneling all this attention to, is we are really the first ecosystem that's going head on into the data layer of the internet. Like that is our Trojan horse for consumer crypto. We spoke about it. It's a bit, consumer crypto is a vague concept. What does that actually mean? But for us, really, if you think of what are some of the best consumer apps kind of built on right now, what is the core premise of them being so good? It's data. And how are they making so much money? It's really data. Data is fragmented across these different siloed kingdoms of internet apps where the user gets zero value from it. A user on average in a developed country generates like over $1,000 worth of value a year. That's fragmented across platforms. They have no control over it essentially, and they see no portion of that value. Now, there are technologies that make it possible to generate proofs of certain data points and bring that onto a blockchain, which when you reach a critical mass of enough data ported onto a blockchain, you can build completely new suites of applications on chain powered by this data layer. So you basically open up this data layer that is currently stuck with the monopolies and you can't tap into it on a completely new platform, which is Sofon. And it gives users the power to monetize their data, opt into sharing only certain parts of it, aggregating their online identities and personas under one profile, which they can also then use to monetize activities, get early access to places and such. And this whole hub of data that we're building out through zkTLS, the technology that makes it possible, we're referring to it as the social oracle, which will enable a completely new paradigm of applications to be built on chain and a completely new paradigm of value for your general online user without them having to interact with any crypto complexity. I urge everyone to read into what we've already put out around that topic, but over the next 6 months, you'll hopefully start seeing the first inklings of that being rolled out. And it should be kind of an aha moment for the space of, okay, this really is a path to bringing the billions of users on chain and creating a clear value proposition of flywheel and give them a reason to change their habits slightly from what they've been doing or like adopt some new application or ecosystem.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think data is a big talking topic in recent history, especially around the whole opportunities around AI and what that can unlock as well. Yeah, I think that's fascinating. And final question is just, what's one resource that you have found most valuable to yourself, whether that can be personal development, whether that can be through business? What have you found most impactful to your life?
LLMs. If you don't have ChatGPT, Claude, Grok or something open another tab and you're not consistently using it as a full-time consultant for your own thoughts or like sparring partner, you're falling behind.
It's like my best friend at this point.
Yeah.
It literally is. I speak to him more than I speak to anyone else.
It needs to be. Literally, life hack. On your phone, put the audio mode where you can chat with ChatGPT. When you're in deep work, just speak with it. Have it always open and just speak with it. Whenever you have an idea, it's just so much quicker.
Yeah.
And just, speak your thoughts out loud and have it get back to you with ideas. It's incredibly effective.
That's fascinating. I'm gonna have to put the audio version on. I'm gonna be speaking to it more than I speak to anyone else. But amazing, man. Thank you very much for coming on. Super excited for what Sofon has to come, and really excited to see what you guys build out over the next few months.
Thank you. This is fun.
Amazing.